Have you ever wondered what people do when they think no one's watching? Or even better, when they know for a fact they can't get in trouble? Well, today we're going to dig into a really fascinating story about something as simple as parking tickets. But it involves international diplomats and reveals so much about the unwritten rules that, really govern our lives. So it all starts in New York City, which is, of course, home to the United Nations. And back in the early 2000s, things were tense. The New York Post, which isn't exactly known for holding back, used this very colorful language to describe some of the UN representatives. So what on earth could have them so worked up? The answer, and you might not believe this, was parking tickets. A lot of parking tickets. The source of all this rage was this huge citywide saga, and it was all built around one unique international idea: diplomatic immunity. Okay, so here's the deal. Diplomatic immunity basically protects foreign officials from being prosecuted in the country they're posted in. It's a really important part of international relations. But some diplomats in New York City were kind of using this protection to treat parking signs as, just friendly suggestions. They were racking up ticket after ticket with absolutely zero legal consequences. And this was a serious problem. I mean, get this. By 2002, the total amount of unpaid parking fines had climbed to over $18 million. That is a staggering amount of money owed by people who were guests in the city, but were essentially living above this one particular law. So while all the city officials and tabloid writers were, fuming about this, a group of academics saw something totally different. They realized this whole situation wasn't just about parking. It was a perfect, real-world experiment in human behavior. It was a chance to ask a much, much deeper question about what guides us when the official rules just disappear. Now, to really get what they found, we first need to lay a little groundwork. We have to unpack three key ideas that we often mix up, but are actually very different: ethics, morals, and laws. So first up, we've got ethics. The easiest way to think about ethics is as the external rules. They're the standards that a society or a profession agrees on. It's what your community, whether that's your country or just your workplace, considers to be the right way to behave. Morals, on the other hand, are totally internal. They're your personal compass, right? Your own individual beliefs about what's right and what's wrong. So while ethics are about the group's rules, morals are all about you. They might line up with ethics, sure, but they don't have to. So let's just put it simply. Ethics are the external code for the group, the us. Morals are your internal code, the me. One's about how we all agree to act, the other is about your own gut feeling. And finally, there are laws. And the key word here, the thing that makes laws different, is enforceability. Laws are the formal rules that a society writes down, and if you break them, there are actual, stated consequences. Fines, jail time, you name it. They're the rules with teeth, designed to make people behave when ethics and morals just aren't enough. Okay, so with that little framework in our back pocket, let's get back to our diplomats in New York, because their story is just this brilliant, real-world example of how all these forces crash into each other. This brings us to the first critical question. Now that we know the difference between these terms, what do you think? Was it actually illegal? And the answer, which is kind of surprising, is no. It wasn't. Because of diplomatic immunity, the law, specifically the part that enforces the penalties, was effectively switched off for them. They could not be legally forced to pay a single one of those fines. Okay, so if it wasn't illegal, let's ask the next question. Was it unethical? Did it violate the shared unspoken rules of how you should behave when you're a resident of New York City? Oh, absolutely. And this gap, right, the space between what was technically legal and what was clearly ethical, that's what made this whole thing so fascinating to researchers. It created what they call a natural experiment. It's a situation that happens in the real world that lets you study something you could never, ever replicate in a lab. I mean, you can't just turn off the law for a test group, right? So the huge question for the researchers was this. When you take away the threat of legal punishment, what guides people's behavior? Do they stick to the shared ethical rules of the city they're in? Or does something else take over? And the results were just stunning. What you're seeing here is basically the average number of unpaid tickets for each diplomat, and the researchers found this incredibly powerful pattern. Diplomats from countries with very low levels of public corruption, think countries like Sweden or Norway, they had almost zero unpaid tickets. They just followed the local ethical rules. But diplomats from countries with high levels of corruption, they racked up hundreds of tickets per person. What they were doing was basically importing the ethical norms from back home, where bending the rules is just more of a thing. So you see, this isn't just some quirky story about New Yorkers being mad about parking. It's a really powerful lesson about human behavior, about culture, and about the invisible forces that shape the choices we make every single day. So, what's the big takeaway for us? Well, first, it just proves that our actions speak way louder than our words. It's one thing to say you believe in fairness, but what you do when you can get away with something, that tells the real story. Second, it shows that laws can't be a substitute for ethics. We need that shared foundation for society to even work. Third, it's just amazing proof of how powerful cultural norms are. We carry them around with us wherever we go. And finally, it's a reminder that even our smallest, everyday choices can reflect these huge, large-scale patterns about the world we come from. And that really brings us to the final question, the one this whole thing has been building to. We've seen what guided those diplomats. But what about you? In those moments where there's no law to force you, no penalty to worry about, what guides your choice between what you can do and what you feel you should do?